Hello, everyone. Today I'm here with 𝗤𝘃𝗃𝗵𝗁. 𝗤𝘃𝗃𝗵𝗃 is from West Urban Management in Oak Park. 𝗤𝘃𝗃, give us a rundown of who you are, what you're about, and how long you've been a housing provider here in Cook County.
Hey, great. I've been a landlord and investor for about 20 years. And that became West Urban Management because I figured I had the skill set now. I learned by doing. And now I'm going to do it. Now I've been doing it for other people for about 10 years. So for other owners, I manage. We manage in a very tight community, a tight geographical area, which actually covers four Cook County commissioners districts. Right now, we only manage properties in 3 of those districts, but we could be managing in 4.
What districts are those?
So it's 1, 9, 16, and 17.
All right.
So pretty tight, in near West Suburban. And our specialty is managing smaller buildings. So we manage for landlords who are either a lot of new investors who've become landlords, and for a lot of sort of mid-range buildings, that being 10 to 12 units. Gotcha.
All right, cool. So, most housing providers, I know that you already use it. It's very tight knit. You're working with some smaller investors like us. We're very community based. Everything that's rolling out here with this new proposed ordinance, how do you think that's going to affect that tighter community you might have as it sits today?
There's already so much for them to know, and we do a lot of consulting with them as well, with smaller landlords. They're, community-based landlords. Sometimes they just get into this by inheriting a building, and they're already way behind. And now this is so complex. I'm going to be doing a lot more consulting, which is problematic for them. I'm really worried about some of my landlords where I don't manage their buildings.
Yeah, no, I see the opportunity for this ordinance to like I get these calls and I spend a lot more time educating them on the local, how things work here in Chicagoland area versus, talking about actual how to collect rent. What I always fear, even before this ordinance passes, is landlords going just off on their own with someone that's not out there to educate them and them getting in trouble with something like this. So it is going to put a lot of housing providers at risk, which ultimately, at the end of the day, affects the actual housing quality of what's out there. Absolutely.
Depending on what actually comes down in the end, what the bill actually looks like, the ordinance really looks like. If it's voted in its current form, I think we're going to see a lot of fallout. It's confusing. It's poorly written. No one knows what it really means. Sometimes the same phrase can be something that's good for the landlord. It can be something that's good for the tenant, and you don't know how to even interpret that. You can't tell what they're getting at. And I think if they don't rewrite it, they should put it off, because no one's going to know what they're looking at.
It's a little fine tuning. Let me ask you this question then. Of the proposal that sits out there right now, what personally, or whether it be around your operation or personally you as a housing provider, what do you think is going to cause you the biggest grief or fear of actually it passing?
Well, I think the biggest issue with it, other than the way it's poorly written, is that it does not allow for any judicial discretion. And you're going to hear that a lot, I think.
Define judicial discretion so people...
So you do a minor technical infraction against a tenant. It can be $1 at stake. The tenant takes you to court because they have a lawyer who does that for a living. And you end up with thousands of dollars in fines. And that actually happens in Chicago, where they have a strict liability ordinance. It's really, really expensive for landlords. And, it can be, like I said, less than $1 at stake. And I haven't had that problem, but I think you'll hear that a lot from landlords, especially people who work in Chicago. We do not manage in Chicago, and it's specifically because of the Chicago landlord-tenant ordinance.
There's a lot of people that I take that same thing. They say we stay out of Chicago, and my fears are going to say I'm going to stay out of Cook County now. But as an example for people listening is if you pay in Chicago, for example, you're going to pay interest on it every 12 months within 30 days of that 12-month period expiring. And if that interest could be only a few cents to maybe $1 or a couple dollars at most, but if you don't do it, it seems like a very minor fraction, but you are how the Chicago residential landlord tenant ordinance is written. You are getting the same fine whether you hold back $1 of interest or $1,000 of interest. So I imagine that's kind of a good example.
The judge has no discretion about what a fine should be, no matter how silly the infraction is. And sometimes the infractions they're getting fined on are things that have nothing to do with what they were looking for when they wrote the ordinance.
So in this proposed ordinance, like Chicago, a judge doesn't even have the opportunity of saying, listen, you manage hundreds of units. You have an awesome track record. I could Google it online and people love you. But because you messed up on this one 30-cent issue or even $100 issue, we're gonna throw the book at you for the maximum. So.
And they have to. They don't have any discretion about that. And that is in the Cook County ordinance. It just makes no sense. I can't imagine other laws being written that way. And I know there are some, but this is just so silly.
As an educator, as we were both saying that we are for people coming from either new landlords or people coming from outside the area, I've seen there are a lot of people that are like, all right, Cook County taxes are too high. The laws or the local municipalities that have their own rules, those are a lot to follow in itself. This is another layer of complexity to add to that, like you were saying before. How do you think that's going to affect people looking or considering to be a housing provider? Let's word it this way, a quality housing provider, because I think a lot of the quality housing providers are the ones that are going to take the biggest whack or to make the educated decision to go elsewhere. How do you think that's going to play out?
I think people are going to shy away from investing here. It skews the numbers, makes the numbers very different. When you go to decide if you're going to invest here, you're going to be looking at a completely different set of liability issues. And I personally am going to advise my people I consult with not to invest in Cook County. I have an investment company, a very small residential landlord group, and we invest heavily in Cook County, and our plans to buy more property are on hold now. So it's going to have very real effects. The housing, I'm really worried about affordable housing. So it's a big issue right now, especially in all of Cook County, and I think it's a great concern. But this is going to just tank any affordable housing. The first thing I'm going to do in the spring, because of the liability issues of this ordinance, is double my rent increase. And I think that says a lot. I'm going to advise my other landlord clients to do that. And so there's your start of losing affordable housing.
So there's clearly a lot more tenants, we call them residents, tenants in Cook County than there is housing providers, right? So the intended use of this ordinance is to put more framework around how the housing providers do things. But are you saying kind of the consequences of maybe side effects of this is going to ultimately be bear the brunt by the actual tenants?
Right, absolutely. So here's an example. Late fees in this ordinance are capped at $10. That is I can see their motivation for that. I think that high late fees are ridiculous myself. I personally agree that late fees should not be so imposing and add up so badly on tenants. We hardly ever impose a late fee, but when we do, it's because we're way down the road in the late payment problem, and we need a big incentive, and that's how we use our late fees. But it's very rare. Our tenants are great. Generally, they pay, by the 6th, even though that's late. That's fine. So we're very reasonable. I mean, we're not looking to make money through late fees. And I just think capping that at $10, it ties my hands. And there are so many things about this. I can't be as reasonable under this ordinance as I can be without it.
Neighbors renting to neighbors is kind of the underlining message that, I've been talking to people, a lot of the people that I talk to or you deal with or our clients, they're not East Coast REITs using Wall Street money. They're everyday landlords that have.
I don't know anyone like that.
Yeah, no. So there's a lot of realness of that concept of neighbors renting to neighbors, and you're able to. So I guess you gave a great example there as for how a neighbor trying to rent to a neighbor, their hands get tied by having to follow some of this or having to cover their butts as far as risk goes, right? Is that kind of what?
Yeah, and that's a small example. There are a lot bigger examples of that in this ordinance, particularly as it's written now. They're just, I think it needs more than a tweak because it's poorly written. But if they changed just 4 or 5 things and made them more reasonable, then I might keep my buildings in Cook County.
Yeah, I think you bring a very valid point there. I don't think anybody in my circles are saying, hey, throw this out completely or try to fight against it. Not that saying we have the ability to do that, but make some tweaks and hear what the true street level concerns are. And we go from there.
Yeah.
No, that's great. Anything you advise, whether it be current landlords, future landlords, other fellow property managers to kind of be doing to raise awareness of this right now?
Yeah, we have been telling everyone we know in a sort of, oh my God, this is really happening thing. I think everyone needs to speak up and just say how this is going to affect housing stock in Chicagoland. It has affected affordability in Chicago for many years now, and it's just going to move out to Cook County now. People are going to move to DuPage, and investors are going to move to DuPage.
Yeah. So again, that theme of this is going to affect the tenants negatively, more so in the long run than it will be actually the landlords who can choose to do business here or not, when some tenants might not have that choice and they have to sit around and deal with what the fallout is. So
right.
Any closing thoughts, Vicki? Otherwise, this has been an awesome chat.
I don't think so. I think the 10-day versus 30-day requirement for tenants to default, the new ordinance has a 30-day provision for tenants to cure defaults. Even Chicago has a 10-day. We're working under a 5-day now. Moving it to 30 days is going to be really bad for tenants. Because tenants live all around other tenants. So you've got a problem tenant. You can't even begin to hope to cure a problem like a barking dog, drug dealing, some really bad things, fire hazards, things that are really bad for the tenants surrounding that the problem tenant. Can't do anything until they have a chance. They have 30 days to cure that.
So prolonged prevention of or stopping of an issue that's maybe a less than following the rules tenant is doing, that's hurting maybe another 5 or 6 units in a particular building. You're actually hurting good tenants now, and maybe some of those tenants might have the option to even move away and might move out of the county altogether.
They have the better option. They're more likely to be able to gather the money and just up and move. Yeah. And they will.
That's a good point. All right, Vicky, thank you very much for your time today. And
Thank you.
and we'll circle back soon.
Okay, thanks, Mark.
All right, have a good one.